All right, so everyone here at the Fast Times News is buzzing about this story, and I gotta say, it feels like something right out of a spy movie.
Oh, yeah.
Secret phone call, conflicting accounts, and huge global implications. We're diving into that alleged conversation between, well, President-elect Trump now and Vladimir Putin, all about the war in Ukraine. And this was, get this, before Trump even took office.
Wow, before he even took office. That's wild.
That's what we're looking into today.
Okay, so what do we actually know? Fill me in.
Well, we're basing this deep dive on some reporting from Reuters, and they've got this unnamed source. This source claims that Trump straight up told Putin, hey, don't escalate things in Ukraine during this supposed call.
Interesting. Because that actually lines up with what Trump's been saying all along, right? About wanting to pull back U.S. involvement in the whole Ukraine situation.
Exactly. But hold on, because the Kremlin jumped in right away with a denial. Like, immediately, they said the whole thing is pure fiction.
Wow, a hard denial like that. It makes you wonder what's really going on behind the scenes. What's the strategy there?
Right. Were they just waiting for this to come out? Makes you think. But, okay, even if this call is completely made up, it brings up a bigger question. What does this whole thing tell us about how Trump might handle foreign policy?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? Because if we go back and look at Trump's campaign, he was super critical of how much the U.S. was supporting Ukraine. He even hinted that he could wrap up the war quickly.
Yeah, and there was all that speculation that maybe he'd try to push Ukraine into making some kind of deal with Russia, just to get things over with.
Oh, I remember that. Like concessions, right. To just bring about that quick resolution he kept talking about. And if that actually happened, I mean, the consequences would be huge, right? Not just for Ukraine, but globally.
Totally. And while all this is going on, the current administration's not exactly sitting on the sidelines, are it?
Of course, yeah. This is all happening right as they're trying to wrap things up. What's their take on this?
Biden and Jake Sullivan, his national security advisor, they've both said that the U.S. has got to keep backing Ukraine. They're saying it's key to keeping things stable in Europe.
Makes sense. So they're not just talking, right? What's the administration actually doing about this?
Well, they've been working hard to keep Congress on board with supporting Ukraine. And they're saying that changing course now would be super risky. Like, it could destabilize Europe even more and basically give Russia the green light to make even more moves.
So you've got these two totally different approaches playing out. On one side, you've got Trump, and at least based on what he said before, he might take a more hands-off approach. Maybe he focuses on negotiations and getting a quick resolution, even if it means Ukraine has to give up something. Then you've got the Biden administration, and they're saying, nope, we need to keep supporting Ukraine. They're putting the emphasis on standing up to Russia and making sure the region stays stable in the long run, even if the conflict drags on. It's a tough situation.
It is. And it makes you wonder, with everything up in the air like this and a new administration coming in, what's going to happen with the U.S. and Ukraine? It feels like with Republicans probably going to have control in the Senate, Trump might have more power to make decisions about aid to Ukraine.
Yeah, it's hard to say what's going to happen. Geopolitics is like, oh, it's a wild ride. But here's what we can say for sure. This whole situation shows just how complicated everything is on the world stage. We're not just talking about one phone call, real or not. We're talking about how the U.S. is going to act on the world stage, what that means for a region that's already a mess, and like the domino effect that could have on everybody.
It's a huge reminder for us here at the Fast Times News and for everyone watching to stay informed, to really think about what we believe, and to look at things from all sides. This story isn't over, not by a long shot. And the choices that get made in the next few months, those could have a big impact for years to come.
And as all this plays out, I think we've got to zoom out a bit too. Think about the whole geopolitical landscape, right? How are other powerful countries rising up going to affect things? What about all these alliances shifting around? And let's be real, global events can be totally unpredictable. How's all that going to shape what happens with Ukraine? Everything's connected, and even something that seems small can have huge consequences.
Absolutely. That's something to think about.
It is.
Well, that's all the time we have for this deep dive. Thanks for listening.
Thanks for having me.